Yo, what's up, everyone? I'm back. It's your boy Walterdoom, back for another episode of Let's Talk About Horror, where we talk about any and everything related to the genre. Yes, I have been gone for a minute, you guys, but I am back. I am in full effect, and we got a lot of things to talk about, you guys. First off, we're going to talk about the I Like Scary Movies experience. Yes, I have visited that exhibit, and it is definitely an exhibit you guys should want to check out and hear about. Next up, we're going to talk about the Child's Play 2 remake. Yes, I have seen that remake, and you guys should definitely tune in to hear my thoughts about what I thought about the movie, and which one I prefer. Do I prefer the original, or do I prefer the remake? I don't know, you guys just gotta check it out. And since we are on a remake-filled episode, we're also talking about Suspiria. Yes, Suspiria remake that came out on Amazon Prime. Yes, we're gonna talk about my thoughts on the movie, how I felt about it, and also which one is better. Same thing, do I prefer the original, or do I prefer the remake? I don't know. Also, we got our outro, which is the meme of the week and our must-watch movie of the week. So, without further ado, you guys, we're just about to get into the show.
Let the games begin.
I went to an exhibit called the I Like Scary Movies experience, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys heard of this event because it's heavily promoted on Instagram. And I've been wanting to go for a while. I mean, I wanted to go around opening week of it, but I never got a chance to go. So a couple of days ago, one of my friends hit me up, say, hey, let's pull up. I was like, for sure? You got my ticket? They like, for sure, I got your ticket. And pretty much they paid for the tickets, rode over there, and I got to tell you, it's a very fun experience. First of all, let me talk about the show itself. So it's the I Like Scary Movie experience. It's partnered with Warner Brothers, New Line Cinema, and Ultra Pro. And well, Ultra Productions, I mean. And with this exhibit, it's pretty much an interactive experience. You get to take pictures with like artistic creations of, or replicas I should say, of props from movies, or actually certain scenes from movies that were built. And it's more of like an interactive experience where you can actually touch, feel, take pictures. It's not anything you could just like sit and watch, and it's nothing like the real props from the movies, which I kind of almost wish they did have. But it's more of like something to kind of go to and have fun while taking pictures with your friends. And a thing that I thought about this place, I mean, because it's in LA, of course, and you know I'm from LA and all that. I thought this place was centered in the Hollywood district. I mean, it's kind of not too far from Hollywood, but it's like literally in the Miracle Mile area, which is pretty dope. I mean, it's a pretty nice place where they have it. It's not too far from LACMA, which is another place I like to go to. But here's a couple of things that I liked about the experience that I could talk about. So for one, what I liked about this exhibit was the interactive experience. Now, me, I'm big on going to like art exhibits and what have you, because I'm like that kind of artful guy. So, you know, I like kind of like the whole artsy music, artsy movies. That's why movies like, what's an artful movie I could think about? An artful movie like Darling, because I feel like that one is very artful in its own way. That's a dope movie. Big Fish, that was a very artful movie. I like that movie also. It's more fantastical than anything. But I actually see it as more of an artful type of movie. It's funny because I was in a forum also, and they were talking about how much they hate art films and all that, or art house films that they call it. And some people actually kind of consider Hereditary as an art house film. Now, I don't know if any of you guys consider Hereditary as that. I really don't. I just thought Hereditary is more of those like slow burners, thriller type horror movies. I mean, with the big plot at the end. Well, plot twist at the end. But yeah, I do like those artful movies. But to be at an exhibit where you can actually touch the props and take pictures and don't have to worry about too much of, breaking the prop or whatever, was kind of like a sigh of relief. I mean, you get to go over there. Yeah, you get to go over there, take pictures with the props while also kind of traveling back to some little memory lanes about the movies that you've watched that you're taking pictures with. The exhibit features, I believe, 5 titles, which is Beetlejuice, Lost Boys, The Shining, Nightmare on Elm Street, and It, the new It, not the old school It. No one didn't want to fuck with Tim Curry's It. But yeah, it was those 5 movies, and they had like a really good setup. Like in the It exhibit, they had like this whole little mountain of Pennywise heads that you could actually stick your head in or actually take a picture through the inside of the mouth of Pennywise. And it looks so dope because they have like this whole collage of like children's toys and newspaper clippings that are attached to this mountain, and it was really dope. I mean, I honestly speaking, I feel like the It room was probably one of my favorite layouts at this exhibit. I mean, The Shining was pretty cool, but it was definitely the best one just because of how everything was laid out. They had like the boats, the little sailboats that Georgie lost in the beginning, which was laid out pretty nicely, which also kind of like covered up the room where you could actually go in. I guess if anything, it's like going down the sewers to go in where Pennywise lived and take pictures with like a coffin, dead clowns, and what have you. And you can also take a picture with the hand of Pennywise who's holding a balloon out, which is really dope. But yeah, the props was pretty cool. Taking photos was pretty cool. Like I said, Pennywise was definitely one of my favorites. What was kind of like my least favorite was definitely Nightmare on Elm Street. And I feel like because it was it felt short. I felt like it could have been more to it. I mean, I felt what I saw was that they kind of limited to 3 rooms, but in those rooms, they were very dynamic out of the 2 of the 3 of them, in my opinion. So in the Nightmare on Elm Street rooms, there's 3 rooms that you could go into. So 2 rooms are Freddy Krueger inspired. The 3rd room is more like you're taking a picture with a mannequin who is possibly someone who's going to get killed. But in the 2 rooms, one room is kind of like a throne set for Freddy and what have you. So you get to sit in a chair and kind of feel like Freddy Krueger for the moment. The thing that's happening in that room, well, in the 2 rooms for Nightmare on Elm Street, which in the other room is a big claw hand of Freddy. Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys seen that claw hand, and that's the one room that I was really like excited to go to. But as soon as I got there, I was kind of underwhelmed actually, because I didn't know what to do. I mean, that's crazy. I was looking forward to this the whole time, and I get there and I just don't know what to do there. But when you get to like Nightmare on Elm Street, after you get through The Shining, because that's the first room, then you go through Derry, which is the Shining. You know, you go to Freddy, and I can't help but feel underwhelmed. I mean, I get what they were trying to do as far as like try and make it seem more like a Nightmare on Elm Street, as if like you're in this nightmarish hallway where it's kind of empty and what have you. But the thing is like you go through a couple of rooms and it is literally just kind of empty. I mean, yeah, you're surrounded by like the nightmarish sounds from the sounds that they play around the rooms, but at the same time, it's a bit lackluster at best, and I just felt like it could have been more to the Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street rooms, like it was to the Dairy Room or to The Shining, which is Overlook Hotel. After you get pretty much through Freddy Krueger, you go through Beetlejuice's rooms, and it's separated by 2 rooms, and then the Lost Boys, which is the last one, it's pretty much a 1-room venture. Now, I feel like this is where it actually tapers off a bit. It's basically like after you go through it, everything else kind of tapers off and is not really that exciting. I mean, the Beetlejuice room, that one was actually very interesting and exciting. I mean, they got like a little foam pool pit area that you could dive in, which is fun. Well, actually not dive in, you gotta fall in. I swear, when I fell in, I felt so awkward. I mean, I don't know why. I felt like I was gonna fall and hurt myself on the foam, but it's like, bro, it's foam. How can you hurt yourself? I don't know, maybe because I was worried about it supporting my weight, that's why. But yeah, the way I felt, it was so lame. I should have redid that. But there's also a little area, well, a couch, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys seen that couch also in pictures on Instagram, where you could take a picture of yourself and your friend, and you could pretty much have your body as like the half woman who was in Beetlejuice, who was like pretty much cut in half. That was pretty much dope also. There's also like other little props that you could take your pictures at, which are also pretty dope, that came from the movie. But after you get through that room, the rest of the Beetlejuice rooms are really just lackluster. They don't really engage you. I mean, it drives you to where, if you were like a fan of Beetlejuice, which really I'm a so-so fan. I love the cartoon. It was my favorite cartoon when I was little. I actually liked the cartoon. I used to watch it a lot. But the movie, I feel like I've seen the movie maybe only once in my life. Maybe twice. And when I was watching it, I didn't watch the whole thing. I maybe watched it in like parts. I didn't watch like all of it straight through. But yeah, after you get through Beetlejuice, the Lost Boys is just 1 room. And I've never seen the Lost Boys before. Surprise, surprise. But if you guys are a regular listener to this podcast, I mean, you should know already that for me, I love horror movies. I just haven't seen all the major ones. And that's pretty much my goal as I'm developing this channel, is to kind of watch all the major horror movies, as well as watch some B horror movies, or maybe horror movies you guys never heard of, and kind of give you guys some input on my thoughts and everything, and maybe some compare and contrasts. But yeah, definitely, I gotta check out Lost Boys. I mean, if they would bring it on stream one day, that'll probably be one thing I'll check out as ASAP Rocky. That's so lame, ASAP Rocky. But let's get into things that I didn't like about this exhibit. Well, besides like it tapering off after Beetlejuice, I would have to say the staff over there, it differs. Okay, so I did like the staff. The staff were very helpful and playful. and very informative and knowledgeable about these movies. There was one guy when I was in the Beetlejuice area. Um, he was kind of schooling me on what Lost Boys were. Now I knew what Lost Boys were, but I just have never seen the movie. So my friend who was with me, they never seen Lost Boys either, and when they were asking me like, what is it? I told them it's a vampire movie starring Kiefer Sutherland. And I said Tom Cruise because I thought Tom Cruise was in that movie. But the staff over there who has seen that movie, he told me, nah, Tom Cruise wasn't in it. It was Corey Feldman and another Corey, which I can't remember his name right now. But yeah, he was very knowledgeable about that. Now here's another thing. That was good. But the one thing that was bad was the staff that didn't know anything. And that's kind of annoying, but we all get that in our workplace environments and what have you. We get to the gift shop, which was definitely a lackluster area, by the way, once you get to it. You know, usually I'm used to gift shops being separate from the exhibit, or if they do have a gift shop, they have a nice setup for the gift shop to where, like, you know it's a gift shop. So the gift shop was very lackluster and was very random where it was at. It was basically at the end of the exhibit. And it was like literally just a little kiosk. And the things that they had were not really exclusive items. And it was funny because when I was going through looking at the items from the gift shop, you know, they were telling me, because I was kind of asking them about, I forgot what I asked them. I think it was something about like, well, I really can't remember what I asked. So I ended up asking the staff, like, I guess a question about the gifts and what have you. And they kind of gave me the inclination that, well, they told me that the items that are at the gift shop are pretty much exclusive through Warner Brothers and that you can't find these things anywhere else. And what I got was a couple of Funkos. I got a Pennywise from the new It movie Funko, and I got a Freddy Krueger Funko. Now, what was interesting to me is that I was thinking to myself, like, okay, let me go on Amazon to see if I can find these items. I mean, they didn't just have Funkos. They had T-shirts. They had lunch pails or lunch boxes for you guys that don't call it that. They had cards. They had like diaries and other stuff like that were interesting. But I went on Amazon to see if you can't find the Funkos, and sure enough, I found them. But they were a little bit more expensive. Well, like a couple of dollars expensive from what the exhibit was selling them for. Now, I should have seen if the lunchboxes was on Amazon, but I felt like, okay, some of these might actually be found on lunchboxes. I feel like the T-shirts which said I like scary movies, those you could actually find exclusively at the exhibit, and that's pretty much it. I should have bought a T-shirt. I'm kind of almost regretted not getting a T-shirt in a way. I don't know, but yeah, that was one thing I didn't like. Another thing that I didn't like, I felt like it could have been more worlds to it, you know, just beyond like It, Shining, and Beetlejuice, which were very significant. You know, I still, like I said, I feel like it could have been more to Nightmare on Elm Street. Like I said, it was very short, very lackluster. And I just felt like once I actually got there, it was a very underwhelming experience. Now, as a horror fan, I mean, if I was a casual horror fan, I should say, I would probably enjoy it and just be like, oh, dude, look at me, you know, like flex or whatever. But as like a semi-hardcore horror fan, I'm underwhelmed and just a little disappointed in a way that there wasn't more to Freddy Krueger. I mean, they could have really just made that whole area like a broiler room in a way and just set it up to where it just looked very nightmarish, have papers everywhere, have it more dark and menacing and red and what have you. I mean, I just felt like maybe they could have made it more like a maze to where you go from that starting area and make your way to the hand as you go through like different parts of like the nightmare in a way. Because it didn't feel like a nightmare at all. I mean, if I'm going through something that's called Nightmare on Elm Street, I want this place to feel like a nightmare. And it didn't even feel like that way at all. But, I don't know. And then, I feel like also, it could have been more to the worlds. Like, they could have did more places like Woodsboro, from Scream. Have the scene where Sydney is in her house and she's trying to run from the killer. Go through her house. I don't know, maybe go through like the barnyard in Scream 4 when they were watching all the stab movies. I mean, just something. Or even like Haddonfield off of Halloween. Or even Crystal Lake. I would love to go through Crystal Lake. I mean, I would love to see them actually recreate the whole Jason area, And that would be exciting. I don't know one person that wouldn't be excited to go through Crystal Lake. Because I know definitely I would. Some things that they could improve, definitely they need to add more people, add Chucky, Ghostface, Jason, Pinhead, Leatherface, Jigsaw. I mean, imagine going through like the whole Saw experience in the I Like Scary Movie exhibit. That would be insane. I would love to do something like that. I mean, I know they do like mazes at Universal Studios and they have they used to have the Saw maze, but I'm pretty sure they don't have it anymore because Saw is not like really a thing anymore. Now everybody's on Stranger Things. Side note, am I the only person that really hates Stranger Things? I gotta be the only person that hates Stranger Things. What do you think, Chucky?
What are you, fucking nuts?
I don't know, man. I mean, I might be because I try to watch Stranger Things and I only went through like a couple of episodes. And after those couple of episodes, I just really wasn't interested in the show. I mean, maybe I'm just like not really interested in Stranger Things. I mean, I know I'm kind of not too into the sci-fi that much. Back to the experience. I mean, I feel like they could have added more to the experience. Maybe they could have added like a Snapchat area also. Because when I was Snapchatting some of it, I noticed that they didn't have any filters for the exhibit. And that could have been something really cool added to the place. Give it more of an interactive experience. Also a digital experience also. That could have been real good. What also could have been better is that they could have had more exclusive materials or better collectibles at the exhibit. I mean, I'm not dissing them for the Funkos. I mean, I know I actually bought a couple anyway, but that's because I just kind of like wanted them. And I wanted to kind of like start a collection. I mean... But yeah, they need to add, I feel like if they're going to do this exhibit again, which I hope they do next year, because I know pretty much they're done around July. They just extended to July 14th. So I'm low-key kind of thinking about going back before they actually end. Hey, I might actually go and actually get the t-shirts and lanyards that I didn't get. Just to show that I actually was at this exhibit. But, yeah, I just feel like they need more collectibles, more material, maybe even a better space also just to do this thing. So that way they can have more worlds happening. Maybe actually extend like the current worlds that they were displaying and put more into it. I mean, it would be really dope if they do that. You know, if they could find like a nice big warehouse, because they had it like in a warehouse area. But I feel like also in that warehouse, they could have also used multiple floors. I mean, they kind of, you got to utilize your space some kind of way, is what I'm saying. You know, stairs, floors, all that shit, you know? So, I mean, overall, I'm not dissing it, saying it was a bad experience. I actually really enjoyed myself. It's very fun. If you guys get a chance to go, definitely check it out. It's I Like Scary Movies experience. Get your tickets in advance because they do have a timed entry for going into the exhibit, but after you enter the exhibit, you're real good after that. The only problem is you cannot backtrack. That was one thing I actually had a problem with. Is the simple fact you couldn't backtrack to any of the rooms. So when you're in the rooms, you're in the room, but once you're done, you're done. There's no backtracking, and that's just to keep from the flow getting congested.
What's your favorite scary movie?
So, for you guys out there, I have actually seen the new Child's Play movie, the new Child's Play remake that just came out. And to my surprise, I mean, it was actually good. Cue the dramatic sound effects. Yeah, I mean, I really felt like this was a good movie, surprisingly. I mean, I would go on record to saying that I wasn't for this movie for a little while. I mean, at first I was for the movie before the big Chucky reveal or seeing any of the reveals of the Chucky. When we got to see Chucky, I remember from the promos. So for you guys that have been following this movie for a while, I mean, they've been doing promos since last year, like late last year, actually, like maybe around November, October, when we first got news about this movie being filmed. And we got to see little leaks over like the coming months. The Prodigy had an exclusive trailer for the movie, but it was more of a teaser trailer than anything. It wasn't more of like a real trailer per se to where we got to see what Chucky looked like. But other than that, I mean, there was just like little reveals, little promos. As we got closer to the movie being released, and I think this is where my opinion changed, was when we got to see a little bit more of what Chucky looked like. And I still will go on and say, like, that was not a really good looking Chucky. I mean, it's a horrible looking doll. I will admit that. It's a very horrible looking doll. The things that I did say about this movie was, what was going to be good was the story and the acting. Other than that, I mean, I felt like the origin of the story was not going to be great. I felt like, when I say the story was going to be good, I mean like maybe the way that they kind of construct the movie as far as like how the story is going to be developed, it's going to be good. The construction of it. But the conception of it, which I feel like is two different things, the concept idea seemed ridiculous. And I will go on record to say I was wrong about that too after watching this film. I really liked the concept idea that they did with this movie, because the underlying message for this movie was technology and the degradation, or I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Maybe takeover or manipulation or whatever. Like basically enslavement to humankind. I mean, we always saw movies like Terminator kind of take a twist and turn for that. Other movies that delves into the idea of robots taking over the planet kind of falls under the Transformers. And that's a terrible franchise, by the way, with their concept idea of robots taking over the planet. Or it don't even have to be robots. It could be aliens, like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Faculty, many other alien movies that deal with humans being replaced by creatures from another planet. But in this movie, you kind of get the same kind of concept about a robot trying to replace humans. Now, we all know the premise of this movie, which is Andy, who is played by Gabriel Bateman. He has this doll who is given by to him, who is played by Aubrey Plaza. And pretty much this doll is being used because Andy doesn't have any friends. Now, the thing that I thought about that was going to be bad is, why does Andy, who's a little bit older, uses this doll? Like, why would his mom get him a doll like this? Why would she think that's cool? But when I actually watched the movie, and also, you guys, this is spoilers alert. So, I'm going to be mentioning a couple of spoilers in this take. But she pretty much gave him the doll because she thought it was a joke. She thought he would like it because he's looking at the doll on YouTube, kind of like a meme video, something that you would see on Twitter, and it's humping like another object and what have you. Now, it kind of makes sense why she got him the doll, even though she doesn't know what the doll does. But even with her not knowing what the doll actually does, Andy still finds a way to kind of uses the doll to his advantage, or not really his advantage, but to kind of keep him company. And in the first half of this movie, I have to admit, in the first hour, you really get this really good development about Andy and Chucky, and also like a funny little moment, because we all know Mark Hamill is playing Chucky. He's voicing Chucky in this movie. But it was funny when Andy was trying to name the doll. He tried to name the doll Han Solo, and Chucky immediately switched to Chucky. And he just wanted to be Chucky. So, I mean, that's the origin of how he got his name. Almost kind of like the original, but not quite like the original. Because the person that possesses the doll, he was already named Chucky. In this movie, he kind of names himself Chucky. But, yeah, as we move on with the film, I mean, the first half of the film definitely was really good. I mean, you get a real good development with the story. You get to kind of see a bond being created between Andy and Chucky, and the group of friends, which I always felt like was kind of like a Stranger Things cop-out, or an It cop-out, because, that's what's being popular right now, is kids in adult situations, I should say, or movies with kids in them, kind of behaving more like adults. And that's another thing that's coming up in a little bit of other movies. I seen a trailer of this movie called Good Kids or Good Guys or some shit like that, where these kids are just like cussing, doing drugs, or talking about drugs, but they are like telling some misinformed information, And they're also talking about sex also, which is also a misinformed information. I mean, I get it's a comedy movie, but it's getting kind of weird seeing kids, you know. I mean, I know when I was like 13, 12, 11, I was talking that good shit too, but I never really claimed anything or claimed I did anything with a girl. It was fucking weird to me. I never understood why anybody would do that. I mean, I have friends that claim like they did this, they did that. But I never did that shit. Maybe because I'm weird. And I don't like to lie about shit like that. Because it's weird. Like, what's the point? You know? But that's another topic for another channel for someone to kind of touch upon. But moving back onto Child's Play, you get a good development between Chucky and Andy. You also get to see a really good chemistry and a really good story being developed between Andy and Karen, which is his mom. And you get the story of Andy, who is dealing with his mom, who is struggling and trying to, you know, put food on the plate for a kid, but is also has a boyfriend who turned out to be married the whole time. The crazy thing about it is that I kind of figured out that the dude was married by not really from the first moment he entered in the picture. I'm getting so tongue tied. But I kind of figured that out when he was at his car and Chucky was about to stalk him. And I was like, I fucking knew it. I fucking knew he was married. So watch out there, ladies. I mean, you might land Prince Charming, but you're probably landing somebody who's actually married. You're landing somebody else as Prince Charming, who's not really charming at all. But anyway, yeah, you get to really see the chemistry between Andy and his mom. But not only the chemistry between him and his mom, but the chemistry between Andy and the other kids, Andy with Mike, Mike with Karen. I mean, the actors, I really have to say, it really did show through that these characters really like hanging around each other. And that's really good when you get a movie where actors really like to work with each other and actually get along with each other. Because you could tell that these people had so much fun hanging around each other, filming this movie. Even as silly as the concept was for a killer robot to be trying to kill basically everybody that hurts Andy, it really you could really kind of see that these actors really had a fun time creating this movie, as well as the people who had fun writing this movie. And they really did complement each other real well. I mean, with Andy and Karen, and even just Andy with the friends, they kind of really complimented each other well. I mean, they all seem like a group of misfits just trying to get through the day. That was some of the things I really did appreciate that this movie did, as well as the technological part of it, as, you know, dealing with like technology taking over. That was a really interesting line that they, well, not line, but an interesting concept that they really tried to take with this movie. Because you get to see, like, Chucky really kind of take over every Caslon product that's there. Now, it was crazy to me to think about, like, and this came as a thought to me. I was like, is this city like really filled with all these Caslon products? Like, how are all these products so accessible to everyone? I mean, it kind of reminds me of Apple a bit, or Google. Well, more Apple than anything, because everybody has an Apple product at least. Everybody has at least one Apple product. Whether it's like a watch or a phone, you got at least something. But it was interesting to see how this world that's filled with Caslon, it just pretty much taken over the whole city. And it looks like everyone is pretty much dependent on it. And their dependency for this product kind of turns deadly in a way. And it just makes me think, like, could this possibly happen? I mean, I know it's ridiculous, but not in that aspect of Child's Play or WALL-E for that instance. I know that's kind of random, but WALL-E, there's a theory that WALL-E is kind of like, his world resembles how humans become too dependent on technology and he ends up fucking killing everyone, or how technology fucking kills everyone and all this other stuff. I'm just saying. That's another thing that kind of came to my mind when I was watching this movie. Is just is how technology as a message kind of ruins the lives, or could possibly take over. I don't know what I'm trying to say there. Well, actually I do, but I feel like I'm not wording it right. But yeah, the message was good. The acting was definitely good. Another thing that was good that I really didn't think about too much when I was making my thoughts about this film was the kills. The kills, I mean, they weren't anything really spectacular per se. I mean, you get some real fucked up kills in this movie, and it ranges from like animal cruelty to abusing someone's grandmother. I mean, man, it's so crazy. I mean, I really thought that the kills were kind of lame, but who was getting killed really caught my attention even more. And I would have to say the most fucked up kill in the movie was Karen's boyfriend, Shane, who got his face pretty much cut off and put on a watermelon. Now, it was funny because I was reading an article. Lars Klevberg, he wanted to do something different with Shane, as basically like cutting his head off. The problem with that scene was because of the copyright issues between MGM and Universal. Universal kind of owned the kill that they wanted to do in this movie, so they had to switch it up. And I guess for Kleber, he was just like, you know what, fuck it, let's cut his face off and put it on a watermelon. That one was pretty much accidental when I read about it. It was interesting though, because the copyright issue, I feel like, probably really limit them on what they wanted to do as far as like characters and who to kill and how they were killed. It played a big factor. I mean, who'd have thought just because you do a certain kill, and we've seen people get killed several times in the same way in different horror movies. I mean, I might make a montage or a list about how many times someone got their dick chopped off in the most fucked up way possible in a movie. I mean, one movie I could think of right now is Hostel Part 2, when the girl, she was being used for the black market, and they were trying to get the attention of the people who were orchestrating everything. She had like I believe it was like tweezers or something like that. She cut dude's dick off, and the dog pretty much ate it that came in there. Yeah, the dog ate the dude's dick off. I mean, that shit was fucked up. And the dog didn't spit it out or anything. Now, with this movie, I mean, because they were limited on how they wanted to kill certain characters, it was strange because I felt like just because I'm separating myself with this movie from the other movies, you know, I wouldn't see myself thinking about the old Child's Play and say things like, oh, well, that happened in the old movie. I mean, this movie really does all that it can to take a life of its own. Yeah, it's a remake, but at the same time, it's not an actual reboot or a remake of the original. They want to make this their own story, kind of like with it. I really do like what they were doing, which is by the same company, what they're doing with it. And I really cannot wait till It Chapter 2 comes out. So, yeah, they really did struggle kind of with the kills. And you could kind of tell, too, that they were kind of figuring out ways to kill these characters that they wanted to kill. I mean, even if it's just a cat or just two people that got killed, or three. Actually, no, it was about three people. It was 3 people that got killed. You know, they really had to kind of put their brain meats together on what they wanted to do with these characters. But besides, I mean, it being gory, because it was definitely some gory kills, and I'm glad that they kept the gore as gory as possible, despite the fact that they had to be really creative with these kills. I'm glad that they managed to keep it gory. But also, the movie was surprisingly funny, which I am actually shocked. I can't believe that this movie was going to be funny, and I'm actually surprised I didn't think it was going to be funny, considering that they had Brian Tyree Henry and Aubrey Plaza, who has such an awkward comedy about herself. She's so awkward. I was looking at a video of her in like different talk shows, and she's just so awkward. But at the same time, she's like awkward funny, like quirky in a way. Kind of like Donald Glover, but Donald Glover is actually funny. But he could be quirky sometimes. But Aubrey Plaza is actually just, I don't know, she's really quirky. Like the shy girl that actually really is funny. If that's really a thing. Because that's how I look at her. Or she's just the weird chick who actually has a weird sense of humor. But she's actually funny with the humor. But yeah, this movie is actually really funny. But not to say that just because it was funny makes it good. There were funny moments, but I felt like sometimes they defer to too much comedy. To where I just felt like they could have toned down some of the jokes or some of the funny moments. Because in the end, we're not watching a comedy movie. We're watching a horror movie. And what Cleve Berg and everyone else was saying that they were presenting was a horror movie, not a horror comedy. If it was a horror comedy like Zombieland, or what's the other one? I can't even think of other ones right now. But if they said they were delivering something like Zombieland, then we could excuse them from like making comedy or like creating funny moments within the movie. But then that means the whole movie has to be funny. And that would mean also like the kills would have to be also equally hilarious as the jokes in the movie, which none of the kills in the movie were. Another thing that I could say that I really didn't like about this movie was that Robo Chucky, who really wanted to be Andy's friend, all of a sudden just developed these emotions for Andy of, if I can't be your friend, no one can type. Now, to me, I mean, I still see Chucky as a robot. And I don't know, I guess in a way the robot was exhibiting sociopathic behaviors. But at the same time, I just wonder, like, why does this robot have emotions? This doesn't make sense to me at all. And honestly, that was literally the second half of the movie, was Chucky starting to have these feelings and feeling sad and disappointed in himself because he tried to kill Pug, which is one of Andy's friends, when they were watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which I really love that they homaged that movie in the film. Usually you get a lot of like the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I've seen, but you don't get many Texas 2 references, in my opinion. At least from the movies I've seen, I have never seen Texas 2 being sampled in a movie. I've seen that movie, well, the first Texas Chainsaw, and I've seen also Night of the Living Dead, the original, sample in a lot of movies. I'm trying to think, have I seen not Chucky, but I want to say Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. That's been sampled in a couple of movies I remember. Can't remember which ones though. Yeah, after Chucky tries to kill Pug because he thinks it will satisfy Andy, because that's what the robot does. He does everything to satisfy Andy. He ends up, well, Andy and the gang ends up stopping him, and they put Chucky in the closet, well, in Andy's closet. That's what Andy does to Chucky. He throws him in the closet to kind of punish him. Now, in my opinion, you see that Chucky is getting sad and he's disappointed. He sounds like one of those children that end up getting disappointed in themselves when they disappoint a parent. That's what his emotions come off as. Now, to me, I'm like, this is a fucking doll. Why is he feeling bad about himself? This doesn't make any sense at all. And throughout the rest of the movie, I mean, because it's a 2-hour film, you really don't feel the 2 hours. I mean, it feels like when you're watching it, it almost feels like an hour and a half in a way. But when Chucky is trying to kill Andy throughout the rest of the film, or trying to please Andy or whatever, I started asking questions like, why does he feel this way? Like, this doesn't make sense at all. It kind of reminds me of from when I heard about I forgot which Terminator it was, but they said like in that movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character ends up developing compassion or some sort of emotion. And to me, I'm like, there's no way robots can mimic emotion at all. It doesn't make sense unless they're programmed. But even then, How do you program emotions? How can you do that? It's like saying to a kid, if they're sad, stop being sad, and all of a sudden they just stop being sad. That's impossible. Little kids are going to cry, they're going to whine, they're going to scream, they're going to shout, they're going to throw a tantrum until 10 minutes later they're over it. A guy breaks up with a girl breaks up with a guy. You tell them to get over it. They don't get over it. They're not programmed like that. You know, it takes like days, weeks, months, depending on the relationship, maybe even years, depending on the relationship, for a person to get over it. And depending on how the breakup came about or how the breakup was preceded, no one is not going to get over it just like that, like a robot. So, to me, with the Chucky robot developing emotions, that was actually a real huge turnoff for me. Did it turn me off on the movie completely? No, it didn't. Because in the end, I mean, if I had to rate this movie, it would be a solid 3 at best. It's a solid 3. I don't think it goes any further beyond that, just because of the second half of the movie, but not to mention it is a remake, but the remake does make its own. And not only that, I mean, there was no real creativity with the kills or anything like that, but it was still a decent movie in the end. Would I go to the theaters and watch that shit again? Hell fucking no. Hell fucking no. What do you guys say about that, Chucky?
What are you, fucking nuts?
Yeah, bro. I'm just like, I will be ready to watch that shit when it comes out on stream. So, I mean, for any of you guys out there, it's a decent movie. Don't get me wrong. If you want to watch it right away over Toy Story 4, which I did, go ahead. You won't be disappointed. You will be definitely satisfied in the end. Now, is it going to be greater than Toy Story 4? I mean, that's dependent on you. And not to mention fucking Annabelle is coming out or is out. I don't know. We got like a battle of the toys happening right now. It's funny because we would have had a 4th film to battle with, which would have been Brahms' The Boy 2. Now, I haven't watched The Boy 1, which is still on Netflix, I believe. But yeah, we would have had a toy showdown. But either way, Toy Story is smoking all these toy movies out the water. But in all honesty, though, I'm surprised about the numbers because Chucky managed to pull a steady second. He came in second with the film, which is crazy. He pulled in about 14 million, which is not bad for a movie that is remade, and a lot of people hate remakes. And I mean, Chucky is not going to be the last remake everybody hates, but honestly, I just feel like everyone needs to give this one a chance. This is definitely a movie that will satisfy the horror enthusiast, maybe even the casual watcher. But yeah, I'm surprised about the numbers, but I won't be surprised if Chucky gets knocked down after this week, because Annabelle, I see Annabelle pulling in about a steady, maybe even 20 over Chucky. You know, Chucky pulled in 14. Some people were predicting 20, 30. I never really predicted that much for him. I didn't even really see him pulling in that much just because he's coming out the same time Toy Story is coming out. Which is another thing. I'm like, why did they want to show down with Pixar and Disney? Like, that's a losing battle. If you want people to watch this movie, bring it out when everybody's going to watch it, which is Halloween. I've always been saying, like, it's the best time to watch movies like that. Same thing with Brightburn. They should have brought it out during Halloween. That's why that didn't do too well in the box office. But not only that, I mean, not only will Chucky be going against a titan like Toy Story, I mean, it's going against titans that are still out, like Avengers Endgame, which is also bringing a re-release out for some reason, and they're extending it by 6 minutes, which is crazy because it's already a long-ass 3-hour movie. But they're going to re-release it. Another thing that I wrote down dealing with this movie is possible sequels. Is there going to be a sequel to this movie? Now, honestly speaking, in my opinion, I hope not. In Lars Klevberg's opinion or thoughts that he gave when he was interviewed about this movie, there's a possibility. But they're not going to really spend it more on Chucky per se, but more about like the other dolls in the movie. Which, if you guys seen it, there's a Chucky bear in the movie, and he probably wants to explore more on that. But who knows? I mean, I clearly cannot see a sequel from this movie. And we all know, like with most movies, sequels suck. Sequels suck more than anything. I mean, it's rare to have, and I wouldn't say it's really rare, but it's tough to pull off a real comparable movie that is just as strong as the first one. And it's real tough to kind of write some consistency with the film that deals with the first one. Besides, I really didn't see anything wide open or open-ended for this movie to have a sequel. It's almost like with The Strangers. If you guys seen this first Strangers, you guys know that they were going through somebody's house and they killed the characters in the end. Ran off and start going around killing again. Now, this movie didn't get much I would say advertisement, or promo, but the Strangers 2, Prey at Night or Prey of Night or whatever that shit was called, that movie was terrible, honestly speaking. And I felt like this movie was only brought out because a lot of people were fans of this franchise. Now, we get this franchise, and it's a movie that nobody likes. I have not heard anybody say they really like this movie. I mean, the comment sections for this movie on Amazon are terrible. So it makes me wonder, like, why did they bring it out? Because people were asking for it. Now, I don't see anybody really asking for a sequel for this Chucky movie. And they shouldn't. They should really leave this movie how it is, because it's already good enough how it is. We don't need to beat a dead horse for over 5-6 years just because the company wants to do a cash grab. Dom Mancini himself, he actually mentions how hard it was in an interview, how it was difficult trying to keep the same energy with this film, well, with the Chucky films that he's brought out, and how hard it was to kind of keep a good story relative to the point. I mean, even the change of Chucky, we go from fucking Child's Play 3 to The Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. Now, I know Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky are still part of the Chucky universe, but those movies are, those last two movies are way too different from those earlier Chucky movies, which were pieces of shit. Flat out. Flat out. And it sucks that, you know, I feel like a lot of people probably haven't seen Curse or Cult, because I don't hear much word about it. Maybe from like hardcore horror fans like myself, or even like above average horror fans like myself, because I'm not really that hardcore. I feel like I am like above average, but just people who like to watch horror movies have seen those movies. If people are not like a super Chucky fan or like a hardcore horror fan, they haven't watched those movies, and they don't care about those movies at all. Which is a damn shame, because Seed of Chucky is the one that kind of killed the momentum, mostly. Just because they took the comedic route for the character. Now, circling back to this first one, should they think about doing a sequel? I don't think so. I really don't think so. And I hope they don't. It's not worth it. The fan base already are against this movie from being made and coming out and already. Why make things worse by creating a sequel that nobody wants to see or watch? And not to mention that this movie pulled in only $14 million. I mean, not to say that that's all it's going to pull, because I'm pretty sure there's movies, good movies, that did bad in their opening weekend and eventually hit number one in the box office. But I don't think Chucky is that kind of movie. So I feel like they should just leave the Chucky movie and franchise that they've created as is, because the movie ended perfectly. It was fine. There was no need to like really, because they tried to leave it open-ended, but I feel like everything was definitely definitive and you can kind of predict what happens next. But other than that, just end the damn thing. Now, if I had to choose between the remake and the original, which one was better? Well, going by how it's just by the two first original movies, I'm gonna have to stick with the original right now. I'm pretty sure all you guys out there that are listening are probably gushing over the fact of Okay, so the new one is terrible. I'm not saying the new one is terrible. I'm just saying the original Chucky movie definitely was a lot stronger than this one. Just because of how they developed the story and how the movie came about. The concept, if you think about it, is still ridiculous. But it was manageable. Was this movie ridiculous and not manageable? No, it wasn't. It wasn't that. It wasn't that at all. It was still good, and it was still good. It wasn't as ridiculous, and it was definitely a manageable story. But at the end of the day, I just can't get over the fucking ugly looking ass doll. Alright, you guys, so I'm going to take a break, and when I come back, I'm going to talk about Suspiria.
Red rum. Red rum. Red rum. Red rum. Red rum. Red rum.
Alright, you guys, so just a couple of days ago, I watched the new Suspiria movie. I've been waiting for this for quite a while, actually, ever since I learned about it, maybe like sometime, I want to say last year, probably. When I learned about the remake of Suspiria, it gained interest for me to try and seek out the original. Of course, the original was on my favorite streaming app, Tubi, which you guys, I've been saying for the longest, check it out. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, but definitely check it out. It's on there. It still is. Yeah, maybe seek out the original. So the original was made by Dario Argento. He's done other movies like Tenebrae, which I also watched from Amazon Prime. The premise of Suspiria is centered around a character named Susie Bennett, who's played by Jessica Harper, which she also makes an appearance in the new Suspiria movie for like quite a bit. She actually has a little cameo on there. She actually plays like the doctor's long lost wife that he's been searching for a while. But yeah, Susie Bennett joins a school called the Tense Dance Academy in Germany. And when she arrives there, she pretty much is trying to learn how to dance, but while attending this school, she pretty much learns about the strange phenomenons and experience all the dark things that happen, like strange experiences and what have you, around this school, and find out the school's deep, dark secret. Now, of course, we all know there's going to be spoilers. If you guys haven't seen this movie, you guys should really go and check it out. Yeah, sorry for the spoilers, but we all know like the story is centered around witches, which is basically the main premise of this movie. So, thing I have to talk about for the first Suspiria movie is that Dario Argento has a certain style to his films. After seeing this movie and Tenebrae also, he has a certain style to what he does in his film. It's a little bit more experimental. It's a lot of more dreamy and nightmarish colors in the film. He has a lot of dynamic camera angles. Most of his kills, you don't really see who the killer is because most of his films are built around the air of mystery. Same thing happens in Tenebrae. He has all these elements. The thing that I do like about Suspiria, for the first one, is that it does have all that dynamic filming, which I do like. I mean, you don't really get too many movies who like to experiment with camera angles and what have you, especially like movies in the 80s. I feel like more movies in the 80s kind of were a little bit experimental as far as how they shot films, but when it comes to films to today, they're experimental, but they're in more of a different kind of experimentation because you don't get too much of like the zooms or anything like that too much, and there's a lot of that going on in that film. What's also interesting about this film is that the way it was shot. And the way this was shot is that the characters, when they were talking to each other, the dialogue was actually filmed in each character's native language. So say like Jessica Harper, who played Susie Banyan, let's say she has a dialogue with Flavio Bucci, who played Daniel. I kind of butchered his name. But damn, Italian names I'm not good with, I mean, as you know, I'm not good with really like saying foreign names like that. But anyway, moving on. Say like she has like a dialogue with him. So while she's talking to him, he actually ends up speaking his native language in Italian while she's speaking hers in English. Now, it makes it a very interesting shot film, but also kind of maybe I feel like a little bit harder for the cast and actors, because maybe then you can't really go too far into like writing a dialogue and kind of like make it more into the movie than it could be, because it's probably just gonna be too much work, because not only does the actors have to know their lines, but they have to kind of figure out their counterparts' lines also. And they got to make sure while their counterpart is saying their lines, they know when to come in with their lines. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, how did they work this out? Like, how much rehearsing did they have to go through? Because watching this movie, and this is something that I really just didn't like, is that for the simple fact that they did this, it's interesting. I like the technique. I like the fact that they did it, because it is a daring process. But it didn't pay off so well as when you're watching it, in my opinion. Because when I was watching this movie first time, I was trying to figure out whether I'm watching a movie that's being totally dubbed, or are they actually saying the lines in the mixing is wrong? But apparently I was wrong. It's actually a mixture of both. Is that lines were being dubbed, because there are people who were being dubbed with English voices, and the mixing is kind of wrong. But I mean, apparently this is like a thing that happens in Italy, like for Italian films and what have you, that they do stuff like this, that they kind of film in this kind of experimental filming. For me, I'm just like, and this is one of the things I didn't like, is just that they could have shot everything speaking one language and kind of like dubbed or subtitled the rest of the movie. And actually, in my opinion, they should have subtitled it. I'm not against subtitle movies, it actually works out better for the actors, because that way you don't have to go through all that dubbing and all that extra pay and all that extra work that the editors will have to do. It actually works better that way, in my opinion. Like take Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, for example. Like, that movie is filmed in its native language, and they pretty much subtitled the whole movie for whatever country you're living in. So yeah, I actually like it if they did something like that. Another film, which is also a movie that I found very disturbing content-wise, but the story written itself was actually really good. A Serbian film. Yeah. For those that probably never seen it before, oh my god, this movie is so disturbing. I mean, yeah. If you're like over the age of 18, definitely take caution. If you're under, don't watch it. You'll be hella disturbed. But yeah, with that film was totally shot in in Serbian, obviously, in Swedish, and they pretty much like subtitled the whole movie throughout whatever language you speak and whatever. And I liked it that way. I mean, that's better for me because it shows that like the actors are really acting and they could dive more into more conflict with the characters and they don't have to compromise anything just based on because of like the language barrier. Another thing that I didn't really like about this movie is the deaths were too overkill in a way. And overkill in the fact that like in the first scene where Patricia gets killed, obviously, she gets like literally stabbed up so many times and she gets stabbed by a annoying hairy hand of a killer that we don't really get to see. But she gets stabbed up and not only does she get stabbed up, but her chest gets ripped open. She's getting stabbed in the heart. And to me, I mean, I like seeing deaths that are just crazy, but I just felt like some of the deaths were just too much overkill in a way. And it was just like, bro, like, we get it. She's dead. you killed her ass like crazy, but yeah. Yeah, but other than that, I mean, the film is actually a really good film. I actually like it, but I'm going to have to take Suspiria 2018 over it. Now, here's my reason why. I mean, I know a lot of people who are fanatics of the original probably would think I'm crazy for this. And, you know, a lot of people who like original films, they wouldn't take the remake over the original just because of the sentimental value, especially if you grew up during that era. That's like with Nightmare on Elm Street when they try to remake that film. And no one liked that new Freddy because he's not Robert Englund. And it's like, if you're going to remake a film, you got to take the right approach to the film in making it better. But it's like, you can't take something that's a classic already and try and remake it. That's the thing. You can't remake classic movies. And I think that's one thing film industries have a problem with. They try and remake these classic movies and try and update them and try and make it their own or some kind of way. But it ends up flopping in some type of way possible. Like Ghostbusters, for example. But movies like It, which it was good, but it wasn't great. You could easily remake those movies to make them great, which is why it was definitely more of a success than something like Ghostbusters or Nightmare on Elm Street, because no one really deemed the first It as a classic. I don't know one person that actually deemed the first Pennywise movie as a classic. I don't. I really don't. And that just makes me want to think about, like, if for those of you that are listening, you know, go in the comments and talk about, well, put in the comment section about what movie would be good remade that wasn't a classic horror movie already. We're talking about non-classic horror movies. So, name a non-classic horror movie that could be remade and be made into a classic from technological advances in this current state of the movie industry that we're in. Because honestly speaking, I mean, right now, I'm excited for It Chapter 2. I can't wait till that comes out, and that comes out in September. So, I can't wait till that comes out. But moving forward, here's some reason why I would prefer Suspiria, the 28 version, over Dario Argento version of Suspiria. And I mean, not to say, I mean, like I said before, I didn't say the movie was bad. I actually really liked the film. But the movie did not have solid acting. And Luca Guadagnino movie, he has solid acting. He actually really got solid actresses in this film. I mean, down from Dakota Johnson down to the last dancer in the film. definitely was great acting. The only thing about this movie definitely was story, and I know I mentioned story is very important to me. Definitely, which is why I don't really deem this movie a classic. You know, the story is it's not all over the place, but there are definitely plot holes and inconsistencies. You know, there's an inconsistent of Olga, who is the replacement for Patricia after she leaves because of the witches. You know, she ends up screaming at Tanner and Blanc by calling them witches in a language that I feel like everybody should understand. Now, to me, when that happened, I don't know why anyone else didn't really react in that film. Because that should have been an indication for everyone else to go, like, why she called them witches? Like, they should have been more, what's the word I want to look for? What's that word I want to look for? I'm sitting here snapping. Have y'all ever did that before? Like, just sit there and snap while you're thinking of something? I know it's like, whenever something's on the tip of my tongue, I'm always like, oh, what is that shit called? And just be snapping away. But they should have been more curious about, like, why she called them witches or what was going on. I mean, there was stuff that was happening in this film that I was like, okay, there's a lot of, like, sorcery going on, but no one is sitting there questioning it right in front of them. Like, and it makes me wonder, like, were these girls who are dancers in this school, are they knowledgeable about the witches? Are they knowledgeable that they're helping these witches? Are they witches themselves? Like, are they knowledgeable about this? Another thing that was also a plot hole was the doctor. I don't know why the doctor was in that very last scene when they had that little ritual going on. I don't know why it was necessary to get him. That was literally not explained at all. I mean, I get that he was kind of nosy and he was like close to exposing their secrets, but at the same time, he had no reason or business to be actually down there when they were doing the ritual dance for damn, what's her name? Oh my god. And I'm forgetting like the main witch's name that they were trying to like celebrate for. But either way, there was no need for him to be down there. It was unnecessary. But I mean, besides that story, that little plot hole twist, the story was definitely more solid than the original. In the original, we have no backstory too much about where these witches come from. We don't. I mean, we do get like a small order of like the detective when Susie, and I'm talking about the 1977 original, where she talks to like some doctor or psychiatrist, and he mentions about Sarah, who has all of a sudden disappeared, about what she's been saying about these witches. And talking about like, you know, all of the cult-like activities that's been happening. Now, in the 28 version, Sarah is not aware of any of this, surprisingly. And honestly speaking, I mean, she doesn't really get sold on the fact of them being witches, and she's actually in more disbelief than anything. I mean, the only one that knew that they were witches were Patricia, because they tried to use her as a vessel for the head witch, which I really still cannot remember her name for the life of me. Oh man, I'm pretty sure after I'm done with this, it's gonna come to me afterwards. This is why you write notes, kids. Detailed notes. But yeah, once when it comes back to me, I'll probably remember later on. But yeah. She doesn't really like know about the witches. The only time she really learns about the witches is through the doctor, who was Patricia's psychiatrist. Another thing that I like about this movie is the overall tone of it, is that it does kind of like give you from head start the dark tone. And yeah, I mean, I get it. It's the 80s. You know, a lot of movies were more campier in the 80s. I don't know why they did it like that, but most films were just campy like that. I don't even know why Suspiria was one of those campy ones, but yeah. And I mean, the one thing I could say about the 80s Suspiria is that it does give you that nightmarish feel of the lighting and everything. The camera angles and effects, you know, they give you that this whole dreamlike nightmare that you're in this whole dance school with Susie. But in this movie, it's more of a dark feel nightmare than anything, and it's just like, it's not totally surreal where things are like moving or levitating out of nowhere, but more of like the imagery and the more violent images and the cut scenes that happen in it. But honestly speaking, the cut scenes before the scene starts into the new chapter of the movie was unnecessary, because it didn't really build on anything. It would just seem like some random images being put together just to kind of transition you into a new scene. But again, I mean, it is a very art house movie. I mean, it is very artful. It's very experimental. And a lot of like, I feel like experimental art movies do take that kind of risk. And like I said before, I am like a art lover. So, I mean, seeing something like this, I'm not really against it. But the cutscene was definitely something I didn't like. Another thing that I didn't like was definitely, like I mentioned before, was the story. The narrative kind of pushed more of the story along. One scene that really like got to me to where I was just like, why did this happen, was when the doctor knew who Susie was. And it's like, I don't know how he knew who she was, because he didn't have like an image of her or anything. But the only reason why he knew who she was is because they're pushing the story along with narrative. Same thing when when the doctor knew who Sarah was. Another thing that really was like bad was also with Susie and the doctor, when Susie actually comforted, oh my god, I could not get that word out, when she comforted the doctor dealing with like all the events afterwards, after he got traumatized from the events of what happened. So she pretty much kind of like gave him details, because I guess the spirit of Mother Suspiria, which is like one of the three mothers of the witches, which they kind of like didn't really, they showed her a little bit, but we saw her at the end really in the ritual scene where all the hell broke loose. Oh my god, that shit was crazy, my dude. If you guys seen that, oh my god, you guys know how crazy that shit was. But yeah, we really saw like what was happening. Like Susie pretty much gave the doctor the rundown about what happened to his wife, and just like all the pain that she went through and what have you. I don't get why they had to like, and it just makes me kind of confused also. It makes me now wonder, like, who was she? I mean, obviously she must have been some kind of deity or some kind of witch, of course. And I mean, all through this time, I mean, she was probably the head witch this whole time, but no one really knew, because in this movie we just saw her as Susie, but she was really Mother Suspiria. But anyway, I just felt like it was a bit of a cop-out for them to kind of like take away the doctor's memories and kind of give him a heart attack or a stroke. I just felt like that part was like really unnecessary, and just was a cop-out just to kind of like get rid of his memories of everything that's happened to him that night, Susie, his wife, and what have you. But other than that, I mean, like I said before, I choose this movie over The original, I mean, yes, this movie is more of a slow burner movie, and like I said, I'm not against slow burner movies because they have terrific stories. They build up dialogue, they develop the characters, and you get more character development from these movies, and more like a story and a plot twist than you do with a movie that they're trying to really push for the hour and 30 minutes that they got filmed of this movie. And that's what I feel about that first movie, is that Dario Argento tried to really push this movie with a lot of dialogue or a lot of like events and story as fast as possible. Probably because of more of the, like I said before, the language barrier with the cast members and everything. But the 2018 one kind of gives you more of a world that they build around these characters that you get to kind of learn and kind of laugh and kind of fall in love with some of the characters in the film. And not to mention that you get basically more knowledge about the witches. I mean, this one is not a hidden gem. I mean, you get to actually see what's going on in this coven of witches. And you get more of like just the tension between them and how much like some of them kind of despise one another and kind of like how they want one person to be still in charge, but the other one is trying to like gain control because she feels like she's next in line. And you just get that inner conflict with them, which is good. Another thing that was also good that I'm glad that they put in this movie is that there was actually a purpose with their dancing. That they actually had like this whole practice recital, and that they did a whole recital for people to watch in this movie. Unlike where in the first one, there was no purpose. There was no purpose at all. Like, it just felt like they were just dancing just to be dancing. And I get it's a dance school, but they didn't do much dancing except for one scene, and the dancing wasn't used for anything. It just seemed like a lot of them were just there, and that the place was just existing as more of just a killing ground or a possession ground for these witches. Another thing that was actually really good with the remake is that the kills and acting was better. Like I mentioned, the acting was better, but also were the kills. And it kind of makes sense in a way of seeing that in this movie with technology, they could really like superimpose these kills in ways that they couldn't before with the old one. And I actually like that they did it this way. Yes, I'm not going to take away from like the old kills in the first one. But like I said, it was too much overkill and too much unnecessary like stabbing that was happening in it. Where in the remake, this one had more of an appeal of like, okay, that makes sense. You know, each time a person got killed is because of someone dancing. And this is what it is, a haunted dance movie. So I'm glad they stuck to the role of what this movie was supposed to be. I really thought Luca did a really good job with this film. Too bad Dario Argento really doesn't care for this film. He just thought it was just too dark for his take, and it just needed to be a little bit more campy. But that could be just a sense of just somebody who is stuck in their own ways, because he did the same kind of format for his other movie, which also had the same kind of overkills, camera angles, and everything else within it. But I'm not knocking Dario Argento. I really do want to check out more of his movies. But if you guys want to check out Suspiria 2018, it's on Amazon Prime. Right now, we're going to take a break. And when I come back, we're going to be on the outro. So yeah, see you then.
Wendy. Darling, light of my life. I'm not going to hurt you. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I said, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm just going to bash your brains in. I'm going to bash them right the fuck in.
Alright, you guys, so we're on the outro right now. As you guys know, we always have our meme of the week and our must-watch movie of the week. So for today's meme of the week is a very funny one that I just came across. So it's a picture of Reagan, of course we all know is from The Exorcist. And while she's in her exorcist form, she says, "Your mother sucks cock in hell." And at the bottom of the picture of her is Jason. And the way he looks at her, he's like, "Fuck you say?" So yeah, if you guys see this one, man, you guys should definitely screenshot that shit and actually put that as your post. Cause that shit is fucking hilarious. But for your must-watch movie of the week that you should check out is definitely Netflix's The Perfection. And The Perfection is centered around this woman who is coming back into the world of musical art. I didn't really write any notes or anything on this movie, so yeah, I'm gonna say things like girl, this, that. Because I am planning on probably talking about this movie in the next episode, because it's really an interesting movie. I'm pretty much talking about my experience about it, but you guys should definitely go ahead and watch that one until I come up with my own opinions about it. But yeah, this movie, I gotta say, you have to really go at it blind, because this is one of those movies that you will not expect each twist and turn that happens in this film. I mean, unless you're like this total film geek who knows every twist and turns to a film, you know, and when something is gonna have a plot twist. But yeah, this movie I highly encourage everyone to check out. But other than that, I'm about to sign out. It's your boy Walterdoom for another episode of Let's Talk About Horror. You guys can find me on Instagram, Walterdoom. Of course, you know, I post my art on there. I post my experiences on there. Nothing really personal or anything like that, because I have a personal shit for that. You know, you guys don't get that shit. But yeah, go ahead and follow that Walterdoom page. Other than that, I'm signing out. This is America. Don't let them catch you slipping up. Peace.